Hi, it's Amy Shaw, the Soul Whisperer here. I am going to talk today about becoming a dream tender. This is a talk I gave recently at the Metaphysical Fair. I was slotted for an hour-long lecture, and so hopefully I can be succinct and keep this video to less than an hour. But I'm going to try to touch on some of the questions that were raised during the talk and share that with you. But I'm recreating it because I wasn't able to actually record it when I was doing it live, and I was asked to re-record it and share it for my YouTube audience, so I'm happy to do it. So the topic, becoming a dream tender. Becoming a dream tender is an important part of shamanic practice. In a lot of ways, I think shamanic individuals have to be very adept at dream work. What qualifies me, I have studied 18 months under dream shaman Robert Moss, and also have been a student foundation for shamanic studies, which also teaches dream tending. So I started out talking about what is a dream exactly. I talked about dreaming being a physiological event. When we actually enter into the dream time, it is a very distinct brain wave pattern. And if you were to go in and have a sleep study, they would hook your brain up to the cap with all the little electrodes on it and measure your brain activity. They would see that pretty much every human being goes into the dream state during the sleeping pattern at some point during the sleeping cycle. The interesting thing about that is a lot of people will wake up and they will not remember any of their dreams, so that they will just assume that they didn't dream. But in reality, we do all enter the dream phase of the sleep cycle. There generally isn't too many exceptions to that. So the point I wanted to make about that is that dreaming is actually a physiological event. It can be measured physiologically in a sleep lab. And it's noted by not only the difference in the brain wave pattern, but also in the external. We go into what's called the rapid eye movement, or REM sleep, where the eyes, although they're shut, the eyeballs will move back and forth very rapidly. And so it's called the REM, or rapid eye movement phase of the sleep cycle, which denotes dreaming. If you have pets, maybe you've seen them dreaming. They'll twitch. I have a dog that's a prolific dreamer, and he will, he'll as if he's running, his paws will go, and he'll also make vocalizations as if he's barking. Sometimes he does this odd clicking with his tongue. His eyes are, fluttering. Sometimes his whole entire stomach is jolting really hard. So he's a very prolific dreamer, and out of all three of my dogs, I don't think that he has enough of the hormone that our brain secretes when we are in that phase of sleep, because he does really act out his dreams much more than the other dogs. So the next thing I wanted to get into was the difference between reality and dream time. This goes into the physiological aspects of dreaming, because our brain does not know the difference between dream and reality. And so this is why our brain inherently, or that is to say that our brain, or we have the endogenous within us, the chemicals within our body that actually act as paralytics. Because if we didn't have that, then we would literally act out our dreams. We would, our heart rate would elevate, our respiration would increase, we would punch and kick, and, whatever was going on in our dream. If we were running, we would be kicking our legs. We would be doing all of these things if we didn't have that paralyzing hormone that secretes during the REM sleep. So, there's a lot of physiological things and changes that occur in our body when we're in dream time. And the reason that we need that paralytic hormone is because, like I said, we would be acting it out. The reason we would act it out is because our brain does not discern between what's real and what's not real in the dream time. So this idea that dreams are not real is actually not organic. It's not biological to our body. It's a cultural thing. So ever since we were little kids, we probably woke up from a bad dream and our parents told us, oh, don't worry about it. It was just a dream. Just a dream. So we're taught very, very early on that dreams aren't real, that they're just dreams. But the point I want to make is that this is entirely a cultural teaching. It's not based in our physiological experience of the dream. The other thing I talked about in terms of the sleep cycles and physiology of dreaming is the difference between hypnagogia and hypnopompia. Hypnagogia is like the pre-sleep. It's that lucid period just before you're like falling into the deep sleep, when you lose total consciousness, and when you're like fully conscious and awake. So it's that in-between time. It's a very lucid state. You're very loosely holding on to your consciousness and you're kind of slipping into the veil of sleep. The pre-sleep period is called hypnagogia, and then the post-sleep, like as you're waking up from a sleep, you're not quite fully awake, you're a little bit groggy still, that's called the hypnopompia, or the post-sleep phase. I personally call these periods of time the golden gateways. I love it. It's my favorite time. They're just very lush. A lot of information comes through for me during that time. A lot of the ancestral visits, a lot of, the spirit whisperings in my ear are very clear and audible. I can feel the presence of them in my space much more readily. Things come through, just messages and images, and I get a lot of information in that period of time. So it's my favorite. For me, that's why I call it the Golden Gateway. Somebody asked how they could actually increase that period of time and if it could be increased. And my answer to that is yes. As with anything, it's practice. And so this is why I'm talking about this, becoming a dream tender, because to become a dream tender requires a discipline, a practice, a dedication, consistency. And if you're interested in increasing the hypnopompic or hypnagogic time period, which it can be done, you really have to have intention to do that and focus on it and work on it, practice, trial and error. My recommendation, if you're interested in doing that, is to focus mostly on the hypnopompic stage, which is as you're waking up. Because usually as you're going to sleep, it's a little bit harder to control that because you're really tired. So you'll kind of, once you go to bed, unless you go to bed really earlier than normal, and allow your body to, sort of come down to that place, physiologically, to relax and rest and come down to that almost meditative state, unless you're able to really do that, which I think most of us struggle with that, especially in the high demands, and the digital age. We're on our phones, we're watching TV. You really cannot do any of that. You have to allow a couple of hours of just quiet down time in that meditative to get to that place where you can lay down in bed and not be completely like exhausted to where you're just like kaplunk, I'm out, I'm asleep. So it's easier if you want to actually focus on increasing that time and working in that time. It's easier for me in the morning. In the morning, I'm kind of awake, but if you have the opportunity, you don't have to set an alarm and get up and go to an appointment or go to work or something like that. You have the luxury of laying in bed a little bit longer than you normally do, even if it's just on the weekends maybe. That's the time to actually start practicing lengthening and increasing and working within that time, is allowing yourself to lay around in bed just a little bit longer and, be in that sort of comfortable, like I could almost fall back asleep state, but I know I have to get up. That is the golden gateway there, that space where you're just kind of floating in between very gently, and all the information will start coming to you. Another thing that I talked about is lucidity, dream lucidity. That tends to happen more during the day, during our waking consciousness. We've all heard that term daydreaming. That is also a form of lucidity. It is an altered consciousness. And again, that's something that we could practice and work on. The more that you do shamanic work, that is, the more you learn how to dream tend and be in control and be in relationship with your dream maker in the sleeping dream. Then also, the more you're doing shamanic journeying and altering your consciousness in the daytime, the more you will have lucidity. And the more practiced and skilled you will be able to be in moving in and out of these states of consciousness with ease and, pretty much on a dime. Going back really briefly to, the difference between reality and dream time and how that's a very cultural prescription. There's a lot of shamanic cultures, indigenous cultures, tribal cultures, animistic cultures, dreaming cultures that really believe that the dream time is actually the real reality. That's the real world, the real life, that our ordinary local reality that we're having now in this moment is actually the dream, that it's the unreal aspect of life. So it's just a little different idea about what the dream time is, and it certainly contradicts our rational materialist culture that wants to perceive everything through our five senses in the immediate and assume that that's what's real, what can be tasted, touched, seen, felt, heard, all that stuff, that is what is real and that's what reality is. But that is a very rational materialist way of seeing it. In animistic cultures, they don't see it like that. Reality is occurring actually in the dream time, in the lucid state, in the shamanic consciousness. Another interesting aspect of this topic in becoming a dream tender is nightmares. A lot of people, as children, once again, if we have a dream that's uncomfortable to us, we wake up and our parents just tell us, oh, it's okay, you just had a quote unquote bad dream. Don't worry about it. You're perfectly safe. That didn't really happen. It's not real. It was just a bad dream. We call them nightmares. In actuality, what a nightmare is really a dream that became so overwhelming to you emotionally that you woke yourself up. And that premature waking up, really what that is just an unfinished dream. So we can ask our dream maker with intention to go back into that dream and bring our courage with us, bring our spirit guides with us, bring our protection with us, whatever that we need to do to feel comfortable, to lean back into that dream and to finish it. Because essentially that is what the nightmare is, an unfinished dream. If you don't have the skill or you don't have the confidence to be able to go back into the dream in dream time to finish the dream, you can certainly do it in shamanic consciousness, in your normal meditative state. However you achieve shamanic consciousness, you can journey back into the dream and finish it the way that you feel comfortable and want to finish it. And that sort of alleviates, that big scary feeling and those emotions that you had around the dream that caused you to wake yourself up. Also along this same line is the concept of recurring dreams. Usually what a recurring dream is, it's your dream maker really trying to get your attention. It's like, hello, you're not paying attention, so I'm going to keep giving you this dream over and over. Now, a lot of people, they get very uneasy when they have recurring dreams. They want to sort of attribute this to being like a precognitive dream. My grandmother, when she was younger, she dreamed repetitively of dying in an airplane crash. So she completely allowed that to prevent her from ever getting on an airplane. For decades, she didn't get on an airplane because she was just sure that this was a precognitive dream because it was recurring. In actuality, a recurring dream may not necessarily be precognitive. We want to attribute some of those sort of, the specialness to the dream, or, give it that sort of magical quality or that, experience to it, because it is an anomaly. It's not something that everybody has. And, out of all of our dreams, to have the same recurring dream, there's something to that, and we know there's something to that. So we want to attribute it to that, to it being, it's a precognition warning. And so we allow that to actually, prevent us from, living life or alter our choices in some way. But it might not necessarily be that. It just might be the dream maker trying to get your attention because you're not paying attention. And so that's why it's really important to lean into the dream. And that's part of becoming a dream tender, is really understanding that our dreams are communications and they're always for our highest good. And so, we want to explore what those dreams mean. Robert Moss has a saying. He says that there's an indigenous dreaming culture, and that they have a saying that everyone who dreams is a little bit shaman. So we talked briefly when I gave the talk about astral travel. Some of the people in the audience were a little bit skeptical about astral traveling. You know, they were like nervous about it, and they didn't think that it was, you know, I'm okay with learning how to be a dream tender, but I'm not okay with astral traveling. You know, that's off limits. And, I had to tell them that our dreaming body, our dreaming self, is our astral self. Every time you dream, you are astral traveling. You're going into the astral realm and you're having experiences. So there's no real distinction between dreaming and astral traveling in actuality. And if you think about it, it's just completely amazing that our bodies, even in the animal kingdom, that our bodies are designed, to power down, to sleep, that healing occurs while we sleep, and that our brain actually enters this phase, and our, all the hormones and everything like kick into place that allows our astral body to sort of loosen, from our etheric body and to travel every night that this occurs. It's actually quite amazing. So the saying that everyone who dreams is a little bit shaman, I'd say that that's really true. It's very true, and it's a saying that I like a lot. I want to share a little bit about really truly the power of dreams, the power of becoming conscious of your dreams and being a dream tender. Harriet Tubman, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she was an African American woman who was very instrumental in the Underground Railroad. She helped free many, many, many slaves and ultimately saved their lives by helping them escape to the North. Harriet Tubman was going to be replaced on the $20 bill. This isn't just rumor. I'm pretty sure that it was voted in and, everybody agreed on it that this was going to happen. So at what point this is actually going to happen, I don't know. But, she certainly deserves to be on the $20 bill because she did some amazing things. She's a part of history. It would be nice to see a woman on the $20 bill. It would be nice to see an African American on the $20 bill. I certainly think that she deserves to be on there. But the thing about it that a lot of people don't know about Harriet Tubman is that how she actually accomplished being able to free so many of these slaves was completely in her dream time. She was from a lineage of dreaming shamans from her country in Africa, and so she brought that, she carried that with her, in her genetic makeup. And she entirely dreamed, every step of the way, every part of the process, the whole entire map of how all this was going to occur, it all came to her in dream time. So, that's just a little tidbit. Wouldn't it be awesome to see a dreaming shaman on the $20 bill? I just think that's so cool. Another thing is the World Trade Center. There's a couple of online dream databases. One of them has been around for quite a while, almost as long as the internet has been around. There's over 20,000 dreams that have been recorded in that dream database. And one of the things that was noted is that about 6 months before the World Trade Center incident, there was a dramatic increase in people reporting dreams of airplane crashes and explosions, buildings falling down, all that type of thing. So it's really interesting that was really brewing in that stream of the collective unconscious, and that it was coming out in dream time, and people weren't really readily identifying, that, hey, something's going to happen, which is the curious and difficult thing about precognitive dreams, is that we don't always know. Actually, most of the time, we don't know that they're precognitive dreams, and even if we know that they are, we don't really know what can we do about them. So I think that really shows, though, the power of dreams in communicating messages to us, warnings to us, and all that kind of thing. Mapping the dream space, that's definitely one of the major works of learning to become a dream tender, learning to connect and become much more conscious in your dream time, because we are astral traveling. When we're dreaming, we're in that astral realm. So kind of mapping it out, paying attention to time, to place, what are the people wearing? Where am I at? Is this a familiar place? Is it a place I've been before? Is it a place I might be in the future? All these kind of questions are questions that as you come back out of the dream space that you should be asking and interacting with. and kind of developing a map of, oh yeah, and as other people share, everyone's dream language is unique. I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. But as you're sharing your dream with somebody else, they might say, oh yeah, I've been to that place, or I've been to a place that's really similar, or oh yeah, I really know what you mean. There's resonance there. So mapping the dream space is an important part of the work. The types of dreams. So it's really important to understand the various types of dreams, and also, from a shamanic perspective, to take a quantum astral approach to it, which is very, very different than a lot of people understand about dream time. A lot of people will take a psychological approach to it, and they'll want to interpret the dream entirely psychological, as if every aspect of the dream is a projection of self. I've been taught how to do dream interpretation in that manner, very psychological manner. And so it's like becoming the thing. If I dreamed of a cat, I am the cat. So become the cat. What does this say? It's this connection. Everything is as if we're the complete creators of the dream. So everything is filtered, from a very egocentric psychological framework. And I'm not saying that that's faulty, or that we shouldn't do that, or that that's not valid or doesn't have a place in dream interpretation. It certainly does, because there are psychological types of dreams. But to approach every single dream in interpretation through a psychological lens, I believe that that's incredibly limiting, and I would much rather take a shamanic approach to it, which is much more quantum in the thinking. And when you take a quantum approach, it really opens up dream interpretation to unlimited possibilities, actually. So I talked about precognitive dreams. The precognitive dreams are really essentially to warn us of personal events, events that may occur in our neighborhoods, in our communities, or in the larger world. There's ancestral visitations that can occur in dreams. One of the participants in my talk shared about how she kept dreaming of her grandmother, but she didn't know it was her grandmother. She could describe all the way down to the dress, what the woman was wearing, and the certain era that it was from. Then she started saying how she was talking about these dreams and this visitation from this person, this repetitive visitation from this person, to her mom. And her mom pulled out old pictures and showed her pictures of her grandmother, and she was like astonished. That's the lady I was dreaming about. As she was sharing that story, I got goosebumps, because that is how it happens. And we don't always know that they're ancestral visits. They could just be strangers. And so you want to really pay attention as well when you're, considering your dreams. Who are the people in my dreams? Are they people that I know? Are they potentially ancestors? What era? What era are they from? What kind of clothes are they wearing? Where's these locations? Like I said, these are all things that you want to lean into and ask these questions, and keep your mind open to the possibility that, this is actually ancestral visit. It could be your soul family. We have soul family reunions in our dream time. So it doesn't necessarily have to be our DNA ancestors. It could be members of our soul family. And it could be living members of our soul family that maybe we're not even aware of, that we're communing with in dream time. We're gathering and communing. So you always want to ask, who are these people? Do I know them? Do they feel familiar to me? Are they people that I know in real life or not? I mean, I have a lot of dreams with strangers in them. And it's interesting because they're people that do feel familiar to me, but they don't look familiar. I don't recognize them in any way. And I have a lot of dreams with my family members as well, so I can easily identify, oh, you were in the dream, you were in the dream, you were in the dream. My friends, I dreamt about you, this happens. But I do have a lot of dreams where there's complete strangers. And so that can be a mystery. Leaning into that and asking, who are these people, these strange people that are showing up in my dream? That's a possibility that they're part of the soul family. Another type of dream is the kind where you're retrieving information, either for self or for others. Part of dreaming can include working. We can be doing work in the astral realm. We can be playing. Just letting loose and playing and being free with ourselves. Or we can be practicing for something, either in this life or a parallel life or in the future. sort of like a dress rehearsal. We can also be dreaming a dream for another person. I think that we get really disconnected from that because we aren't in a dreaming culture. We're in this culture that tells us that dreams aren't real, and so they're sort of rejected, they're laughed at, they're not really openly shared. I made a video before about becoming a shaman at the breakfast table, just cultivating that dream tending within your own family, on a day-to-day basis. But definitely even in the community. There's a movie called Embrace of the Serpent, and it's a really excellent movie. It's all black and white. It's subtitled, so if you can tolerate that, I highly, highly recommend it. It's about a South American shaman and I believe he was a botanist who traveled down to South America, and he was doing work. He was doing field work. And he became very ill, and part of the shaman's prescription was to, assist him in restoring his dreams. I won't give away any more than that. But, that was, fundamentally what the diagnosis was, that he wasn't dreaming. He had lost his dreams, and it was making him actually literally physically ill. So, in animistic cultures, dreaming is like the essential part of life. It is life. It's life-giving. Certainly in these cultures, they use dreams to, build community, to gather information. They didn't have TVs, they didn't have tablets, they didn't have phones, they didn't have all this constant electronic media in their faces all the time. So, they literally were storytellers. They didn't even have written word. So they would sit around the fire and tell stories. And a lot of these stories centered around dreams. In some cultures, they would wake up in the morning, and this is how they would start their day. They would gather around the fire in a circle to stay warm, and each person would tell their dream from the night before, and they would literally build a story, where it was so interwoven and interrelated, like, oh, I dreamed of a little bird in the tree. Oh, I dreamed, of the jaguar that tried to climb the tree to get the bird. And I dreamed of the boy who shot the arrow. And so everybody shared their dream, and it was pieced together in this wonderful way, where it told a story. And the intention of the story was for the benefit of the whole entire tribe. So can you imagine? Just how amazing it would be to be living in the time of having a dream culture like that, and how far from that we've really gotten. So another aspect of dreaming is to be able to dream a dream for another person. And, especially if you're in shamanic practice, this is essential, because a lot of people will come, and I didn't really talk about this in my talk, but, now that I'm thinking about this, a lot of people will come and they're not connected with their dreams. Either they don't remember them, they have difficulty sleeping, they just get fragments. They're not in a habit of being dream tenders. Or another thing is that if they're heavy cannabis users, because cannabis notoriously will limit dreams and the ability to recall dreams and have dreams. So, people, they start to suffer after time. Their astral body just, starts to sort of shrivel up, and they feel it in their, entire body, in their physical body, in their emotional body, all that, in their psyche. They start to become unwell. So sometimes, a shaman has to actually dream a dream for somebody, restore that spark, sort of get that astral body motivated again. And then, finally, there's the emotional or psychological healing. You can certainly dream of soul retrieval, and, sometimes dreams are just, reflections of what's going on in our psyche, relationships, conflicts, our fears, things that are happening in our lives. So sometimes the dream is that space where we sort of work out those things. We do a lot of soul work. We do a lot of integration in our dream time. And that's really important. So as you're doing your dream interpretation, leaning into the dream, trying to understand the message of the dream, these are all possibilities. And there's even more than this, there's a lot of little nuances in between, and so it's important to, these are kind of the nuts and bolts, but it's important to really ask yourself these questions and leave your mind open to the possibilities of what this dream could actually really mean. Now, as for becoming a dream tender, as I said before, it's really important to learn your unique dream language, because everybody does have a unique language. It's as unique as your signature, as unique as your fingerprint. It's your dream language. And you can't go to somebody else really and get a proper interpretation. There's people out there that will claim that they can do dream interpretation, but most of the time they're coming at it from a very psychological perspective. I've met a lot of people that offer that Jungian dream interpretation, or they have a very psychological approach. They've been trained from a very psychoanalytical way to do dream interpretation. And again, I'm not saying that that's completely invalid. That's one way. What I'm saying is that you do, though, have a unique dream language, and other people can, in essence, sort of interpret that. But how do you know that their interpretation isn't actually their own projection? And it's very limited. It's limited by the perspective that the dream is contained in this box of you. It's not taking into account that it could actually be an ancestral visitation, or that it could actually be, soul family gathering, that it could actually be an opportunity for you to retrieve information for somebody else. And, it's not, or a precognitive dream. It's not open to all of these other possibilities. And another thing that people will often do is they'll go and get a dream dictionary, or they'll look online, hey, I keep having this dream of my teeth falling out. What does that mean? I certainly do have one or two dream dictionaries, in my library, but I don't even use them. I think I just got them on the clearance shelf at Barnes & Noble, and they seemed pretty cool. But I haven't actually even really consulted them, because it's the same thing that I teach people when I'm talking about the animal spirits. It's okay to have an animal spirit book and to open it and reflect on it. You can certainly glean information from that, but it's not the way that I tend to do it, because each person will have their own relationship. What's far more important is, if you're dreaming of your teeth falling out, how does that make you feel? Are you waking up laughing because it was funny to you? Are you waking up horrified because, that is far more important. So if I go to my dream dictionary and I look up, dreaming about teeth falling out means this and this and this, it's like reading the daily horoscope. You're going to want to grab onto that meaning and then apply it, like, from the external, and say, okay, instead of leaning into it and intuitively allowing your own language to unfold in a way that you understand it, that makes sense to you. So learning your unique dream language is the essential part of becoming an effective dream tender. And the only way you're really going to do that is by going back in, leaning into the dream, asking these questions, leaning into it, trying to find the answers to it, and doing that repetitively, developing literally a practice out of it, in the same way of like journaling or meditating, or, whatever you're doing, shamanic journeying. You develop a practice. And the more you develop this practice, the more tuned in you are to paying attention to the dreams, the dream language, and, you'll start seeing repeating patterns, and then okay, yeah, I get that, I know, and the interpretation will come much more naturally. Of course, at first it's going to be a struggle, but you just keep doing it. Like anything, when you're learning new, you're learning. It's not easy when you're learning, but you keep doing it. You keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and eventually it will become like second nature, and you won't need to rely on other people's interpretations or on, opening books and reading what it means. You'll just know. You'll wake up and you'll know what it means. So in that sense, the emotional response in the dream is really the key to understanding the language. So if there's any one thing that I would suggest that you pay attention to in the dream, other than all the details about, who are these people, where's the place, what's the setting, other than all of that, those are really just details. The most important thing, though, really, in interpreting the dream language is the emotion, how you felt about it. Was it funny? Was it scary? Did you feel grief? Did you feel shame? Did you feel sadness? Did you feel fear? Did you feel angry, annoyed, frustrated? So pay attention to that, because those emotions really are the key to unlocking what the dream language, your unique dream language is. And it really is key in unlocking the interpretation of what that dream means for you. Particularly when you're doing your own dream analysis, pay attention to puns, double meanings, hidden messages, synchronicities, all of those kind of things. Now, some of those things you're not even going to get until you actually physically sit down to write out the dream. One of the things that you can do to help remember your dreams is just keep a little journal and a pen next to your bed at night, or easily have your notepad app on your screen, on your home screen of your phone, so that you can wake up and tap on it and type it in, if you're not sleeping with somebody else that's going to be bothered by that. But just even 2 or 3 words that key words that will remind you of the dream in the morning. Now, it's not a surefire way, because I've certainly done that and then woke up the next morning and I draw a blank. I have 4 or 5 words on there: gun, glass, boy, and I'm lost. I don't remember any of that, but it sounded like an interesting dream. So that does happen, but that is one of the techniques that you can use to help remember if you wake up from the dream in the middle of the night. It's really important, though, to write them down, because it's the way that we honor the dream maker, and the more we honor the dream maker, the more dreams that the dream maker will give us. The other aspect of that is that you can go back and review your dreams. I've been recording my dreams for 4 or 5 years now, and sometimes I go back and I'm blown away. I totally forgot that. Wow, I dreamed that. That was an amazing dream. Just a tip for you, one of the things that I prefer to do is in Word document. The reason that I do that is that I can keep it on my computer, and I categorize it by year. So I have 2018, I already have a folder started of my dreams. 2017, I put them all by year, and it's all in a dream folder. So I have dream folder and then the subfolders by year. And if I go into the dream folder, in my file explorer, I can search the dream folder for certain keywords, say elephant, and then all the documents that contain the word elephant will pop up. So that's why I really like to put them in Word, because it allows that search capability. And then I can really, build a story and review other dreams that might be similar. It's very helpful and very, very interesting. But I got ahead of myself a little bit there. Let me go back. Let me backtrack a little bit. Another thing to pay attention to in the dream is signposts. Certain resonances, certain repetitive themes, or things that, you might not even be able to put it in Word. There's a certain texture or quality or feeling that helps you kind of decide what category this dream is. For me, precognitive dreams feel qualitatively different than other types of dreams, and I can't even articulate it really in words, but just kind of paying attention to the texture of the dream will help you delineate, oh, I dreamed a precog dream. Oh, I dreamed, a soul work dream, or it will just help you put it in a context. Another part of being a dream tender that's really important is setting intention before you go to bed at night. To set intention. What do you want to dream about? What do you want answers to? What do you want to know about? What kind of work do you want to do in the dream time? Or what kind of play do you want to do in the dream time? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Who do you want to do it with? When I was studying under Robert Moss, we kind of, developed subgroups, within our group. And in one of the subgroups that I was in, one of the things that we were doing was experimenting with meeting up together in the dream time. So we would all, agree ahead of time that we have this intention. Okay, we're going to meet here. Here's what we're going to do. And so that we would set the date, okay, on this night. And so we would do that. We would experiment, with meeting up in the dream time. And I have done that with other friends as well. So setting intention is incredibly important. Another aspect of becoming a dream tender is being able to journey into your dream. If you you want to go back into a dream, it's an unfinished dream, or you want to go back and know more about it, you can always set intention and ask your dream maker to take you back to that place. But, you know, that's a highly skilled person that can do that. You might not be able to do that at the beginning. And so one of the things you can do is actually journey into the dream. Instead of like going into the sleeping dream, journey into the dream. You know, go into the shamanic consciousness, go to that time and place, ask those questions. I remember doing some dream tending for somebody, and she was talking about her dream, you know, where it was, she was on a bus, and it was going very, very fast, and, you know, she wasn't sure who was driving the bus. You know, so I suggested to her, well, go back in shamanic consciousness, go back in and interact with the bus driver. Ask, who are you? You know, where are you taking me? And you can do these things as part of becoming that dream tender and having a rich and vibrant dreaming practice. Okay, the dream journaling, I kind of already talked about that. Okay, and then honoring the dream maker. This is something that was definitely instilled in me by Robert Moss. That was one of the things that he was very adamant about, is that when you wake up and you have a dream, you know, to do something physically to honor the dream maker, to honor the dream that you've been given. It's a gift. And we want to give thanks and be appreciative for it, and also bring the energy of the dream into our waking consciousness. So, for example, if you dream of smoke, you know, you might want to light an incense. Or you dream of a bird, you know, you might want to, you know, do a little dance, you know, a bird dance, you know, a soul dance with a bird. You know, in some way you're going to bring the energy of the dream into your waking consciousness for that day. So honoring the dream maker is very, very important. Another aspect of becoming a dream tender is creating a dreaming community. You can do that amongst friends, casually. You can do that formally in an actual dreaming group. As I was sharing before, you know, in my own experience of doing that, the goal of this is to experiment and to play and to do this with other people that are interested in doing dream work, that are willing, you know, to set intention with you and to just have fun, to play and experiment and try it out and see what will happen. The important thing to remember is if you're sitting around in community discussing dreams and you're asking people for their ideas about it, or, you know, for insight or interpretation, if you're the one that's giving the interpretation, to always stick with the "if this were my dream," because really we can't speak another's dream language, and it's not really respectful to tell somebody, well, this is what your dream means. You know, it's you can only really take it within yourself and digest it within yourself, within your own dream language. And when you give it back in offering to somebody, you know, to say, if this were my dream, you know, is the way to continue to honor and respect them and their dream maker. Now, and going back to journaling a little bit, I also gave a handout where I just showed the template that I use in my Word document. I have the date, I have the title of the dream. I always title the dreams. I have the details of the dream. The important thing in writing down the details is it doesn't have to be like she wore a black coat and purple shoes. Unless it's so striking to you or it feels so relevant to you. You don't have to really give that level of detail. You can just kind of give the gist of the story. You know, this happened, and this happened. And not write a 10-page, you know, storyline of this really long or intense or crazy dream. You can just kind of pull out the nuts and bolts of it in the details. I have a feelings section where I record, you know, the feelings, the predominant feelings and themes of the feelings that are from the dream. I have a resonance section where I just talk about the resonance. You know, sometimes there'll be threads. You know, I'll watch something right before I go to sleep, and then I go and I have this dream, and it's similar enough to the dream that there's resonance there. So I make sure I always, you know, will put, you know, under resonance, you know, well, I watched this show and it had themes of this, and so there's a similarity there. And then another thing that I also learned from Robert Moss, which has been incredibly invaluable to me, is the last section in my template is called bumper sticker. And so what the bumper sticker is, it's just like the one line sum of the entire dream. So it's taking the whole energy and message and point of the dream, what you really got out of it after you recorded it, and just putting it into like a slogan or a bumper sticker saying, and that's really powerful because it contexts the dream in a way, it pulls it all together and contexts it in a way that you have like a very simple takeaway. And again, I like to put these in words so I can easily do a search and pull up, dreams that might have similar titles, bumper stickers, themes, feelings, that type of thing. I did share with the group that, I am a certified soul collage facilitator. One of the ways that I actually honor my dream maker is by creating soul collage cards. The original soul collage creator did not have a dream suit in her vision of the soul collage deck, but there's no rules to soul collage, and so I have actually created a dream suit for my deck. So certain dreams I have actually collaged, and that's the way that I can hold the energy and also honor my dream maker. So I would just encourage you to, think creatively. I mean, if you're a painter, paint, write a poem. There's a lot of different ways that we can honor the dream maker, but definitely that's something that you do want to do to, keep your dreams coming and interacting with them. And like I said, it's a practice. The more that you do this and engage this work, the better that you're going to get at it, the more prolific dreams that you're going to have, and the richer the experience will be. Okay, so some of the questions that were asked in the group, somebody wanted to know about sleep paralysis. A couple of different people actually wanted to know about sleep paralysis. My take on sleep paralysis, which may or may not be shamanic, is that it's actually a physiological event. Like I said, our body produces a hormone that creates a paralysis, not complete and total paralysis, but it's enough of a subduing effect that we're not vocalizing in our dream, we're not acting out our dreams too profoundly to where we're hurting ourselves. And so what happens when sleep paralysis occurs is that hormone is out of balance. It's too high, there's too much of it, but we actually wake up. So we come out of the sleep cycle and we come into waking consciousness, but the hormone level is still very high in our body. So we're literally paralyzed, but we're conscious, and we experience this as a very horrifying, panic-inducing event because we're awake and we can't move. And a lot of people, again, will spiritualize this, and they'll feel like, oh, I was being held down, or it was some kind of malevolent entity that was, paralyzing me, or because it is a very scary experience. I'm not going to say that that's not the case, that can't happen. I'm just going to say that I tend to take a physiological approach to it. And if somebody was coming to me and they were struggling or suffering from regular incidences of sleep paralysis, I think I would work with them shamanically, not from a spiritual realm, not from an assumption that it's a malevolent entity that we're trying to extract, unless they believe that. If they personally believe that, then I will work within that belief system. If they don't know what's happening to them, though, and they're coming to me saying, I'm not sure why this is happening, I'm not going to tell them, oh, it's because a demonic entity is holding you down. I'm not going to approach it that way. I'm going to approach it from a physiological standpoint, and we're going to work on it shamanically from that aspect to bring the body into more equilibrium so that they're not having this imbalance of the hormone, the paralytic hormone. Another question that was asked was about astral travel. I talked a little bit about that already in this video. Basically, the person was wondering, well, we got into this discussion about sound. I'm hearing a sound. And then I started talking about the exploding head syndrome, which, is an interesting term for it, but that is literally what it's called. It falls into the same category as sleep paralysis. It's a known phenomenon by science. You can find it, readily Google it. You can find it in academic research and literature. And that's what it's called, the exploding head syndrome. And what that is that immediately after somebody goes to sleep, they can be awoken immediately by a very, very loud noise. It sounds like a bang. I've heard people say it sounded like a car crash occurred out their window. It sounded like a bomb went off. It's an incredibly loud, jolting sound, so much so that it wakes you up. And then they wake up to discover nobody in the house heard it. Nothing's wrong. Nothing's out of sorts. Exploding head syndrome. They don't really know exactly what causes it, but like I said, it kind of falls into that same category of sleep anomaly, like sleep paralysis. It is something then that's, sort of in the range of normal human experience. I don't really know, if I can say much about that spiritually. That was another thing that people talked about. They wondered, why right when I fall asleep I have this sensation that I'm falling or I jolt, wake myself up. I certainly have had that happen. And I usually, when that happens, I wake up and then I laugh. I think it's funny. Really, again, I think that this is a physiological thing. I think it goes back to our really old ancient brain and that reflex that we have for falling. When you do newborn assessments, that's one of the most basic human instincts that we're born with. And I think that it's that deep part of our brain as we start to relax and our nervous system starts to switch over into the sleep cycle. I think that it just sort of, for whatever reason, it triggers that reflex. And, we experience that sometimes as a sensation of falling that'll make us, jolt. So it's interesting, but again, I don't take a spiritual approach to it. I take a physiological approach to it. I think that we're powering down, so to speak. Our nervous system is switching over into the sleep cycle. And, the human body is so amazing. We're electrical beings. Literally, we are electrical beings. That action potential is literally a firing that's, going through our neurons, through our nerves in our body. So it's really interesting, to just consider it and think about it in that aspect, that we literally are sort of powering down and switching over into a different mode of being. And so sometimes that transition is not as smooth as we'd like it to be, and we experience that jolt. Another question that was asked was, because I make reference to the dream maker, somebody wanted to know, they wanted me to talk more about that. What's my relationship with the dream maker? Do I think that this is actually a separate entity? Or what exactly that is? And I just explained that, basically the dream maker is the astral body. I see it as myself, but I also see it as an extension of myself. I am in relationship with it. I prefer to call it the dream maker as a separate entity. Shamanically, I have grandmother storyteller. Storytelling is a fundamental, important aspect of shamanic practice. And so I actually have a persona or a guide, a personality, whatever you want to call it. She's grandmother story maker. And, I come to her when somebody's needing a story, and she weaves the stories for me. They're magical, they're quite healing. And, when she weaves a story for you, it's magical. There's magic in it. There's healing in it. So in the same way, I have my dream maker. My dream maker is that aspect of my astral body that creates dreams for me, that helps me go back into the dreams to get the answers to the questions that I have. And so I want to honor that aspect of myself. And so how I do that is by calling it the dream maker and being in relationship with it. So that was pretty much the talk that I gave. I was going to try to make this video less than an hour, but I don't think I was very successful. It's a big topic. There's a lot to cover. There's actually some things that I didn't talk about, and I don't really want to go back and go into that, but you know, I wanted to sort of create this so that it was here for other people to benefit from. I thank you guys for watching. If you hung out this long, that's awesome. Thank you. If I said something that was interesting to you or that you liked and you want to pass it on, please share the video. Thumbs up it if you can. As always, you can leave questions down below or comments. I'd love to interact with you. I am in shamanic practice in the Austin, Texas area. I would love to meet with you in person if you're in the area or able to come to the area. If not, I do distance sessions, so I am open to hear from you for that as well. And I hope that you learned some things, you got some insights, and I appreciate you guys so much. Have a great day.